You're listening to XPosure on RadioX. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Editors with Cold. It's the opening track to the brand new album, Violence, which has just come out. And I'm very pleased to say that Tom from Editors is here with me tonight. Hello, Tom.
Hi.
It's great to see you again.
Good to see you.
It's been a few years since the last album came out.
Yeah, there's a habit forming here.
It is, but it's a nice pattern, and one that I enjoy very much. So it's great to have you back, and I thought the best way to start would be with the opening track of the new album. So up to album number 6 already with Editors.
Indeed.
Which seems amazing, doesn't it?
I think it's significant, yeah. It's something we're proud of, you know. When starting out, I always looked at those career bands and thought, in some way we'd like to emulate their path. We're doing a show with The Cure this summer, you know, and that's one of those bands like that. Yeah, I don't know. When you start out, longevity isn't a cool word, is it? It's not. People, I think, prefer you to burn brightly and go out, but we always wanted to be one of those bands that has a career, you know, and makes a whole load of records, and it goes on a bit of a journey. So yeah, here we are, 6th record. How
do you approach a 6th album, though?
There's a bit of putting one foot in front of the other. You know, there's a bit of I don't know what else to do. When we aren't touring, I'm at home writing, and so these things start to grow, and we still have passion for making music together. Now the band is in its second lineup. So the first lineup made 3 records, and this is the 3rd record, which is the second incarnation of the band, I guess. But it still feels quite fresh, and it still feels like we're learning from each other and developing as a collective. So to get back in a room together and try to do new stuff is it's a joy. It's what we want to do, you know. And if you hit a bump in the road, obviously, that's when you have to try and navigate those problems. But yeah, at the early days, it's like, well, let's make another record. Let's get and do our thing. We feel like we've got stuff to say.
But you still feel that clearly?
Yeah, I mean, we still get a buzz out of making music. I still get a buzz about hearing a song on the radio for the first time, and we like touring. It's great, you know. The routine of it becomes tiresome, but the actual creative process of being in the studio we adore, and I think we could still be there now with this record if it wasn't for some outside influence, which we'll get on to talk about. But we're very happy in the studio now, tinkering away and recording ourselves a lot of the time. And it's funny, like when we're thinking back to when we started, as at that point 4 young men with guitars each in a corner of a room making a loud racket, and it's all about kind of capturing some kind of energy and spirit, and very much like a live band, even when you're creating. Now it's very different. Now we're like tinkering away with drum machines, and our heads are in manuals, and we're much more like I think, you know, we're more of a studio band. We have more in common with someone like a Massive Attack than, you know what I mean, than the band we used to be. Yeah. But that's cool. Things change, you know. Yeah.
But then again, I mean, when you listen to the new record, you can hear all the elements in the journey so far, I think.
I hope so.
Well, you can, the electronics that you've embraced for a while, they're all there, but then, you know, there are loud, explosive guitar moments too, and, you know, rhythm is still a key factor.
Yeah.
So I think all the ingredients are there in this new Editors record.
I hope so. It feels like we've struck a balance which maybe we haven't found before. We've, you know, our musical journey is, you know, we've gone between guitar and more electronic records as we've gone along, really, and that I think has perhaps confused people along the way, put people off, attracted some other people. I think with the help that we've had this time round, yeah, like you say, that blend of guitars and electronics feels fresh for some reason, in a way that, you know, the last record, which was quite electronic and it was all our own doing in Dream, and it was a very kind of hazy, blurry experience. We hid ourselves away in remote Scotland, and it really felt dreamlike, as you know, as the title would suggest with that record. But this one feels focused and refined and immediate, and that's also to do with the songs that have come along at this point in time. With the, you know, I think our pop writing spider senses are, you know, tingling. Yeah.
The structure of each song is quite it's welcoming. I'm loath to just say it's you know, they're quite pop structers, but I think they're quite accessible, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah, it's something that over the years, if I've written something that has felt quite poppy or immediate, and our response has been to put it in a cloud of darkness, you know, put it somewhere less obvious, and that's just what we do. And I think there's still an element of that, but I think we're more open to like trying to push it to a more, you know, upfront place now.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of the melodies and stuff.
Yeah, quite right too. And they're kind of evident everywhere, really. I mean, even in a track like Hallelujah, So Low, which I'm about to play, which has this kind of massive explosion about a minute in, and just sounds immense. But, you know, there's all this melody going on in there as well, you know. And how do you balance that? How do you create that? And how do you know, right, what we need now is that big bang?
These things tend to work themselves out in the studio, and we kind of... There are moments when you collectively understand what you're doing together. Things click into place. Hallelujah, to start with, was all about the relationship of the acoustic guitar and the drum machine, and it's this really cool little song. But this moment, you talk about the explosions. It's Justin, really, our not-so-new guitarist. We've had became known, or... You know, to start with, our guitars all came from a very high place. Melodic too, but it was a very kind of, you know, it had the sound, and it. This is like from the balls, you know, it's lower and more rock, and it's you know, Justin's a different guitarist, and you can really hear his influence on this and this moment in the song, which is visceral, exciting. It's you know, it's a roller coaster, you know.
Yeah, I think it sounds fantastic, and you'll be able to hear it now. This is Editors with Hallelujah, So Low, on XPosure, RadioX. It is Editors with Violence on XPosure RadioX. It's the title track of the new album, which has just come out. I'm John Kennedy. With me tonight is Tom Smith from Editors, returning for the 6th album. Violence is the title track. And, you know, we were talking about pop, and there's a great kind of pulsing dance beat to Violence. And yet, you know, Violence, the very title, suggests and alludes to the violence in the world. And that's the interesting thing about this new record. You know, you tackle some quite dark subjects, I think, but they're very approachable and you know, quite kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but quite bright sounding in many ways, which is quite an interesting combination.
I think some of that comes down to the sonics of the record and the melodies that we've talked about, and maybe the way the words are, you know, like the songs do feel set in the world we live in today. There is a presence of this kind of scary side of our lives. This violence is in the record, but I feel like the songs focus on people, like humans connecting with each other in that a relationship or friendship, or I feel like the songs focus on the need for that connection, some kind of escape from this violence that I talk about, and so perhaps that on one hand is a little bit more of a warm thing to sing about. It just sounds scary from afar. The headline is scary, but the story, if you read it, is about human connections, and I think that is important.
Yeah, well, there's that interesting line about the streets being paved with souls, which I guess it alludes to history and the fact that, you know, every street has been trodden by thousands and thousands of people. I'm assuming that's the way I've read it.
Yeah, that's
unless you're talking about ghosts and they're all there haunting us.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I like images. I like lyrics that do spark off things in people's heads, be it, you know, like you say. To me, the song Violence was about that kind of like the energy when two kind of lovers, I guess, come together. That kind of like, could be emotional violence. I get sparks flying, you know what I mean? That exciting kind of moment. So to me, that's where that song comes from.
I was going to play Nothingness next.
Great.
Nothingness, the very word.
Again, bleak word, bleak headline.
Yeah. And it's kind of sat right in the middle of the album, and it's like, this is the reality of 21st century life, nothingness.
Yeah, I guess. You know, we all have such technology at our disposal, you know, such advances in human, I don't know, wisdom, and just, I don't know. But none of us are any happier, are we, with where we are with our gadgets, and I feel like in nothingness, that kind of like very modern blues that I think perhaps we all feel on some level, is something to kind of look past. And as the song says, like, this angel just needs some tenderness, you know what I mean? Again, it goes back to that thing I was talking about before about human connection. And it's funny, these kind of phones that we all, you know, walk around with, and the way that we do consume what goes on in our world. You know, there used to be a time when the news was just at 6 o'clock, and it was once a day, and that was its place, and now you can't escape it, and every opinion and viewpoint is shouted at you constantly. It's confusing and terrifying and violent in itself, you know.
Yeah, it's true. And when recording this, I mean, it's quite a rich recording, and who's doing the backing vocals? Who works out the backing vocals and editors?
Well, Elliot, who came in after record 3, does a lot of singing. So on this song, I can't remember the backing vocals. I think it might be a combination of me and Elliot. Across the album, across the last 3 records, his presence as a singer is more than we've ever had as a secondary vocalist before. So he creeps in and out. I mean, like you say, this song is very electronic, has like a very club feel. It feels like kind of he comes from a dance background rather than a rock background, and had a lot of help. I mean, across the album, a guy called Blanck Mass did a lot of additional production with us, and so many of the electronic flourishes and a lot of his rhythms as well, quite industrial at times, come from him and his kind of warped way of doing things, you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is Benjamin Power, and he used to be in a band called F Buttons, as I used to like to call them. One time I saw them, and their speakers literally started smoking, because the thing was so loud that the speakers caught on fire. It was pretty amazing.
Well, we heard, when we were making... So we started on our own. We spent about 6 months in Oxford recording ourselves. We knew early on that we wanted to have outside involvement to give it a certain freshness or make it feel different from the record we just made. And we heard World Eater, which is Blanck Mass's, Ben's second solo record.
Is that the one with the dog mouth? Great record. And
just straight away, just so sonically, so an assault, you know, really quite violent, come back to that word, but brutal and melodic at the same time. And we just kind of thought, well, I wonder if a guy like this could get his hands on what we're doing, and if he could have an influence on what we do, if he'd be open to it. And Justin called him up, and he didn't hang up the phone, and we started sending him tunes. And so then periodically over the next weeks and months, these songs that we'd worked on, spent a lot of time on each song, would come back from Ben, and he'd be very sensitive to the structures, and the vocals would pretty much stay the same, but everything else would come back blank massed, as it were. And we kind of had 2 records at that point. We had like this Blanck Mass version of the album, we had our recorded version of the album, and it was interesting. And we then got some more help to fuse these 2 things together to find this balance that we talked about to start with.
Yeah, and that was the extra bit of help was from Leo Abrahams.
Yeah, Leo Abrahams. So he's done a lot of work as a musician, so he's played on a lot of records, and he's done a bit of production, a few things, and it was great. The reason he kind of got the gig, as it were, he was just talking about what he thought an editor's record should be, and what the band were, and his insistence that we should keep the emotional resonance of the songs and of the musicality of them. So I think we would have all gone, wow, let's just make this totally Blanck Mass and really scare people. And his take was maybe we should use elements, in which we have done, but you have to, you got to keep what is you, and he was right. But when he came in to work with us to start with, it took a little while to earn trust. Is it our relationship with producers generally is the Floods and Jackknife Lees of this world, and they've done a lot more records than Leo has done. They're a generation older generally, so they have like a father-like presence, and generally you can just go, all right, you're the boss. They walk into the room, band, producer, and that dynamic is very easy to understand, and everybody knows their place. Leo's he's a bit younger than me, I think. He's our age, certainly younger than Justin, perhaps. And so straight away, you're looking at this guy who's got these strong opinions about what your record should be, and he wants to throw away some things that we quite liked. So it took a while for us to work on songs, go, actually, this guy is doing something special here, and his attention to detail, and you'll hear across the record just lots of little, really quite hi-fi details in the sounds and sonics, and it's down to Leo. He's a genius, and yeah.
Fascinating. Right, we're going to hear Nothingness now, though. This is Editors with Nothingness on XPosure, Radio X. You're listening to XPosure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Editors with Magazine. It's another selection from the brand new album, Violence, which has just come out, and Tom from the band is here, giving us a little bit of background, a little bit of insight. The two worlds colliding between Leo Abrams, working on production, and Blanck Mass, working on this other production. I can really see how, you'd invite Blanck Mass, Benjamin Power, to get involved, and he kind of reworked the whole record, and you clearly loved that version. And because obviously you were excited by what he was doing anyway, in general. So it's like, oh wow, it's like a new Blanck Mass record.
Yeah.
No, but obviously Leo had some really good points to make about, actually, you got to bring more editors into the equation.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that maybe this Blanck Mass version might still exist and that you could put it out.
Yeah, I mean, he worked on not every song on this, 7 songs on this record. There's a couple of others that didn't make the record that he's done as well. So, yeah, well, maybe one day we'll, think about that, because it's interesting.
I'd like to hear it. I mean, I always like the idea of companion albums to other albums, be they dub versions or, reimaginings, reworkings, and it's quite interesting, because obviously with anything, it can go so many different ways.
Yeah, you can take a song so many ways. We've had songs over the years that, there's a song on this record called No Sound But The Wind, which we've tried to record so many bloody times. And, they all have their own stories. Magazine is another one, which you just played, which again was a song that we tried to record when we were making record 4 to start with, when Chris was still in the band. It kind of was one of the songs that soundtracked the demise of that lineup. So we got put away in the cupboard for a long time. But yeah, I mean, especially when you have 5 such strong musical opinions, shall we say, in the band, and people that are very, good at having their own ideas and bringing things to the table. When you've got a song which is I've brought to the room, which is just, me on the piano, and then everyone goes, well, this could be a ballad, or it could be a rock song, whichever way you want to take it. There are so many different things you can do. And making those decisions can be hard, and sometimes we go backwards and forwards. Yeah.
And I guess often the case with so many bands is that once they then start playing those songs live, they take on another life and mutate and change again.
They shift slightly, and then they start to belong to the audience, and then the audience get an opinion on how it should be as well, and then it gets really messy. When they think they know best, you're in a bad spot. There's songs that we've played before, and the people will hear the recorded version, and they clearly don't like them as much as the song they're used to. Just the way it goes.
Yeah. So how long did it take to put Violence together then?
I think the whole process was about a year from when we were working, the 5 of us to start with, and then before then I'd been writing in between festivals and in downtime for a year before that, probably. So, in terms of working on it, a year.
Yeah. And were you, obviously breaking away to do other things, but you were doing live gigs as well in that
Some
time?
festivals, because
you never seem to stop. There's a year doesn't go by without at least a run of Editors shows.
Yeah, well, we've not done our own tour dates for a while, but we will generally do festivals, You've got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Got to make records.
Yeah, exactly. But it's great the way that can work, because in a way, those can be weekends away within a calendar, and you kind of get the machine back in operation.
Yeah, it's it can be a logistical nightmare, but it is. What was cool last summer is that we started to play Magazine and Cold, Hallelujah. At that point, Blanck Mass hadn't been involved. It was just kind of the Oxford recordings of those songs that we were putting on stage. I think we knew straight away that the songs were going to work. People straight away got them. Like, playing new songs at festivals is interesting, not perhaps the most wise move, because you know, a festival crowd isn't there for that reason, really. And when you play a new song in that environment, it can be, I don't know, you see people go to the bar, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Fine, you know,
and but also your set time might be reasonably short.
Yeah. You have to be, you have to be sure of yourself if you want to do it, you know what I mean? So we did last summer, and, you know, as soon as Hallelujah kicked off, you could see people were there with you, and instant connection, and it felt like we were onto something.
Yeah, but then you thought, we need these messed up a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, the influence on Hallelujah from Ben is more kind of the outro and little flourishes. Some songs are more kind of like, you know, the foundations were rocked more than others, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It's interesting. I was going to play one more track while you're here, which is Belong, which is the closing song.
This song is the one song that has no outside influence. This is just us.
It's so beautiful. And it has a lot of ingredients, though. I mean, there's beautiful string parts in it. And it kind of stands alone, in a way, to the other songs on the record, you know, and it works really well as the closing song on the record as well. Yeah,
maybe perhaps because it's just us, you know, I think this is perhaps the most direct signpost to In Dream. Maybe it was just us kind of tinkering away, and but it really it's a proper kind of journey of a song, you know. It's not, we talk about the kind of immediacy and pop writing kind of sensibilities of a lot of this record. I think Belong and the song before it as well are something different, different side to the band, and dramatic, kind of over the top, and takes you into this kind of different place for the outro, and you know, it's theatre, you know. It's quite cinematic. The song is about, you know, I see two people escaping in their room, kind of lovers, kind of, it's about possession and shutting the curtain, and again kind of ignoring that outside world, and it feels quite, in some ways it feels quite connected to the early years of the band. It feels like, I don't know, I could hear this on the back room maybe.
Interesting. Classic Editors.
Classic Editors, there you go. Not my word, your word.
And in terms of those strings, I mean, how do you do those then? As
Justin, Justin's a talented man. He's always got his head in, I don't know, in something else basically. He's he's just got Master System, which is a band that
I played them the other night. They're great.
Just coming out and doing some stuff, and he did Minor Victories. He does like
he can't stop, can he?
He literally can't stop, and his energy that he brings to the whole group is it's infectious, and it kind of breathes life into us all. So yeah, this string arrangement was Justin. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, it's great to have a new Editors record, and I hope that we'll be reconvening, Tom, in a couple of years' time for album number 7.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having us.
A real pleasure. And here is then another selection from Editors. This is a closing song on the new album Violence. This is Belong on XPosure, Radio X.